What we know over many, many years is that a high quality cultural education, creative education, has a fantastic effect on children and young people. We know it affects their personal qualities like their ability to communicate, their ability to integrate with their peers, their ability to learn, and we know that it has a huge impact on their kind of creative mindsets, if you like, their ability to develop their curiosity, to develop their imagination and to problem solve in a range of different contexts. We know that a cultural and creative education isn't just about providing technical skills in an arts subject, for example, but it provides those kind of personal, psychological and social skills that are applicable to people in any walk of life. And what we do know is that employers look for those kind of skills when they're looking to recruit people after people leave school. So that's why it's important to get a cultural education offer right.
For me, the main challenges around art education today are increasing tuition fees. You know, we've seen them triple, of course, about 5 years ago in the UK. So very quickly you've gone to from a point where art education is essentially free to now really quite expensive. You know, it's £9,000 a year if you're coming from the UK, or 3 times that if you're coming from elsewhere. So it means that students are coming out of art school with tremendous amounts of debt, which is a new kind of thing. It means that the kind of art they're going to be making afterwards, if they're able to make art at all, is going to be increasingly narrow. And the kinds of people who have access to art schools is also increasingly narrow, but it's more and more we know, just it's wealthy white people. So I think that's a real problem for art schools, which are meant to be places of experimentation and of play and of so on. And so projects like Open School East and other free-to-attend platforms, I think, are more and more crucial.
Hannah and I, we had worked together for many years, and we'd kind of noticed that projects were going into decline, so we decided to take matters in our own hands and produce Entitled Play. We were commissioned to produce 6 workshops to go alongside the Generation Art exhibition.
Each week we would set up an installation. It began as all white, and the idea was that the children were able to step literally inside a piece of artwork and make it their own. It was quite important to us that quite often in museums, children are spectators rather than participators, and we wanted the work to get them involved and feel like they had made a real mark on the museum and it was their own, which kind of echoes the essence of the Generation Art exhibition, about empowering young children to take the lead and for children to feel like they can be artists as well. We would present them with a selection of materials and 3D shapes, and then we would encourage them to respond in their own way. The installation was constantly evolving. They were always adding on to marks left by other children.
It was amazing to see how each week the children kind of engaged in different ways. It became this real kind of place for discussions and observations, and that really developed our way of thinking and how we could structure things. If anything, it was almost like a two-way learning thing, the children teaching us as much as we were kind of giving them an opportunity to engage and learn about art. So I think that was probably the most fascinating things, of children taking on the role of the teacher.
Lisa Jacks from the New Walk Museum and Gallery in Leicester invited me to develop a participatory project that would run alongside the Generation Art exhibition, which was happening in their gallery space. Half of my emphasis is thinking about what's going to come out of the workshop that I can use at a later date to create a new series of works. Basically, I was given a lot of freedom to come up with a project that suited the way I was working at that time, rather than relate specifically to something in the exhibition. So that gave me the freedom to really choose whatever materials I wanted to work with. I chose to work with offcuts from garment manufacturing, mainly because I thought there was a bit of a link between the history of Leicester and this kind of material. So that was my starting point for the workshop. From that point on, it was about getting the children to engage with my materials that I provided. I'm quite specific about the material choice and the materials available in the workshop, really because that's my only input into the workshop. I'm not so interested in directing a creative workshop. I want the children to really, or young people to feel as free as possible within the workshop environment. And I also made audio recordings throughout the workshop, which has become a kind of practice of mine recently. And I've used these recordings to make a script, which has now become a performance piece.
Generation Art was all about getting young people involved in the whole exhibition process. So they wanted me to come in and curate it. It toured, so I curated it while it was in Leicester. I chose which artworks went to the Newark Museum and which artworks stayed in Soft Touch Arts. I roughly grouped them in the Newark Museum, and I helped put up all the pieces in Soft Touch. I always had a bit of an interest in art, but you don't tend to have much confidence in yourself because it doesn't look the way you want it to. I didn't start pursuing it seriously until I joined Soft Touch Arts as a participant about 3 or 4 years ago, and then I moved up through the organisation into working for them, and now I'm going and I've started studying at Montford.